Shalom, shalom, DDP. Haven't seen you in a while. Hope you're well. How is life treating you? Yes, can't complain. Can't complain. DDP, DDT. All the D's are in. Yeah, just planning out the next pipe, really. So I've got a really nice block. It's got some really nice grain. So it's going to be a relatively small apple. Nice and lightweight. Perfect for clenching, hopefully. But I want to get the right sort of blend of the overall look. I'm in the middle of smoking my chubby apple with some London fog. I'm gonna try and get a couple of hours of work in before the match starts. England are playing tonight in the semis against Denmark. Yeah, the arm is doing absolutely fine. No repercussions, thankfully. Hey, B-Dog, how you doing? This looks like a very Jewish gathering here. I'm not sure about DDP, but everybody else in here that has commented so far is of equal religious faith, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Good afternoon, Mozilla. these are all my sterling silver bands. I've got hundreds of other bands, but these are the sterling ones. The rest are all either German silver or just metal or some other alloy. So I think I'm going to do a silver cap, like an army mount kind of idea. I think that's nice with a Cumberland stem. I've got this whole thing full of different bands and caps and whatnot, and I've got this drawer which has got like these kind of things. I've got that in silver, German silver, and copper, and these shank caps which I've used in the past. Got a really nice design on those. As I say, I've started using the silver. Some of these are really like I don't know if these have been reclaimed off old pipes or what, but a lot of them are like very Germanic kind of bands. Quite ornate. Possibly come off, you know, these old Boa type pipes. That's an interesting one, little crown. Got some square ones. There are some really interesting ones. A very little inky dicky one. They've all got, it's got a little, like a pattern engraved on it as well, which is very cool. Yeah, so no shortage of Vans, but the silver ones are the ones I showed you before. They're not these cheapy ones, you know, they're quite expensive and they're quite thick as well, so they're not going to bend in no time. Right, so that's going to be about 18 mil. Alright, I'm going to move over to the lathe. nothing quite like the welcoming smell of shavings or no, that doesn't work.
Wimbledon, he lost his quarter-final in straight sets to Poland's Hubert Hurkacz, but Novak Djokovic is through to the last four. In the city, the FTSE 100 closed up 50 points at 71.51. The pound buys $1.38 and €1.17. And the weather, showers dying out by midnight to leave clear spells and the odd mist patch, a low of 9. A warmer day tomorrow for most, with sunny spells and fewer showers, although some might be quite heavy in the south and east. A high of 22. From Global's newsroom, I'm Tim Humphrey.
This is LBC for Global, leading Britain's conversation. The News Hour with Ian Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 3 minutes past 7 on LBC. I'm Ian Dale, here with you until 10 o'clock. The News Hour headlines. There's growing anger over a so-called summer of chaos as the NHS app is expected to tell millions to self-isolate. Heathrow trials fast-track lane for double-vaccinated arrivals. The president of Haiti is killed in an attack in his home. And the latest twist in the Wagatha Christie trial. But will that be the only football reference on the show tonight? Stay tuned and find out.
The News Hour with Ian Dale. This is LBC.
It's the word of the day, ping. There's mounting anger against what's being called a lockdown by stealth, as infection rates are expected to go up this summer when restrictions are eased. Estimates suggest that millions of people could be asked to self-isolate by the NHS app, as daily cases may rise to 100,000 a day. Hospitality bosses are worried about large numbers of staff having to stay at home, and some Tory backbenchers are joining in on the pile-on. Ian Duncan-Smith said the isolation would make a mockery of restrictions supposedly easing on July the 19th. A PMQ's Labour leader, Sir Keir Starmer, said the Prime Minister should consider how to stop people deleting the NHS app.
He ignored the problems in schools. Now there's 700,000 children off per week because he ignored it. Now he's ignoring the next big problem that's heading down the track and going to affect millions of people who have to self-isolate. Now, it won't feel like Freedom Day to those who have to isolate, when they're having to cancel their holidays, when they can't go to the pub or even to their kids' sports day. And it won't feel like Freedom Day, Prime Minister, to businesses who are already warning of carnage because of the loss of staff and customers. It must be obvious, with case rates that high, his plan risks undermining the track and trace system that he's spent billions and billions of pounds on. Prime Minister, there are already too many stories of people deleting the NHS app. He must have seen those stories, and they're doing it because they can see what is coming down the track. Now, of course, we don't support that, Mr. Speaker, but under his plan, it's entirely predictable. What is the Prime Minister going to do to stop people deleting the NHS track because they can see precisely what he can't see, which is millions of them are going to be pinged this summer to self-isolate?
But Boris Johnson said the system of test, trace and isolate is still an important tool.
Of course, we're going to continue with the programme of self-isolation for long as that is necessary. I thank all those who are doing it. But of course, what we're also doing is moving to a system of testing rather than self-isolation, and we can do that. We can do that because of the massive rollout of the vaccine program. And what I'm still not, I think about the fourth or fifth time, Mr. Speaker, it's still not clear whether he's actually in favour of this country moving forward to step 4 on the basis of the massive rollout of vaccine. And yes, of course, Mr. Speaker, this is unlike the law where you can attack from lots of different positions at once. To oppose, you must have a credible and clear alternative.
Well, Ben Kentish is LBC's Westminster correspondent. He's had a busy day and joins us now. Ben, very good evening. Now, of course, not just PMQs today, but the Prime Minister was in front of the liaison committee. Did he have as rough a ride there as Keir Starmer gave him at lunchtime?
Not quite, Ian. There are a couple of difficult moments for the Prime Minister, including on a very similar topic. Greg Clark, the Conservative chair of the Science and Technology Committee, grilling the Prime Minister on that issue, on how many people the government expects to have to isolate in the next 6 weeks or so, because of course it's only August the 16th. Even then, people have been double jabbed and children won't have to isolate if they come into contact with a positive case. So Greg Clark said to the Prime Minister, look, the calculation suggests that between 19th of July and the 16th of August, 5 million people could have to isolate because they've been, quote, pinged either by the app or by NHS Test and Trace. He asked the Prime Minister, has he seen data that suggests that's the figure, or indeed another figure? Slightly surprisingly, and Boris Johnson's answer was he hasn't seen any data on that. The government doesn't seem to have modelled how many people could have to isolate. But as you touched on just a minute ago, of course, even if restrictions are lifted, if 1 in 10, 11, 12 people in the country is stuck at home because they've been told to isolate, well, it certainly won't feel to them like restrictions have lifted. There are a couple of other moments, difficult moments for the Prime Minister on universal credit, for example. He dropped, I think, the heaviest hint yet that the £20 uplift that has been in place throughout the pandemic will be dropped, will be scrapped in September. That will be very contentious, including with some of his own MPs. And he also got a bit of a grilling, again, from another Conservative, Caroline Noakes, on the issue of gender equality. Boris Johnson said at the G7 he wanted to use the recovery to build back in a more feminine way. Asked what that meant by Caroline Noakes, he didn't seem to have much of an answer. So a few difficult moments. Once again, though, I must say, and Boris Johnson's done 3 of these appearances this year, Ian, he didn't look particularly uncomfortable, and it wasn't given a particularly difficult ride. He came through it largely unscathed.
A PMQs, Sir Keir Starmer coined a new phrase, the Johnson variant, i.e. the Indian or Delta variant. He's now renaming. There was a bit of a sharp intake of breath about that, I thought.
There was. There's some suggestion that it might catch on. I think what Labour are doing, we saw this last weekend when Starmer used the by-election victory in Batley and Spen to say Labour's coming home, and that was the headline the next day. Now he's using this phrase, the Johnson variant. Something that Boris Johnson has done very effectively in relation to Keir Starmer is use sound bites that have stuck. Captain Hindsight is the main one, and it continually comes up. The pollsters say in focus groups when they ask what voters think about Keir Starmer, people use that exact phrase. So Keir Starmer and Labour, I think, now trying to toughen up and improve their own approach, using these sound bites, particularly that one, because they want to send the message, and they haven't been able to do this particularly effectively in recent weeks, that the problems we are facing, rising cases, the delays to restrictions being lifted, is a result of the Delta variant. Pretty much everyone agrees with that. What Labour want people to think is that that is because Boris Johnson and the government didn't move quickly enough to stop that coming to the UK from India. Now, the government, of course, will rebut that, but Labour seems it could be quite an effective line for that.
Now, just very briefly, James Brokenshire, one of the nicest people in the House of Commons, I think everyone in all parties would agree with that. He's resigned today as the Security Minister. Why is that?
He has, Ian, unfortunately, the second time he's resigned as a government minister because of cancer. He got cancer a few years ago when he was a cabinet minister under Theresa May. He thankfully recovered and returned to ministerial duties. And then the cancer in his lung returned. He's been undergoing treatment for a few months. But he said in a letter to Boris Johnson today that his recovery from treatment and return to full duties is taking longer than anticipated. He said, given his responsibilities, he therefore concluded it was best that he stood down from his ministerial role and focuses on restoring his health. Everyone in Westminster, as you say, is a very, very popular figure across the political spectrum, wishing him well tonight and hoping that stepping back will allow him, of course, to make a full recovery.
Well, he's a good friend of LBC, appears on all of our programmes, and we wish him all the best. Ben, thank you very much. That's Ben Kentish, our Westminster correspondent. So, as concerns rise over the way the NHS app works, how could it be improved? And perhaps it was designed for this kind of scenario. Could the app be just doing its job? Well, Lillian Edwards is a professor of law, innovation and society at Newcastle University, who formerly sat on the NHS Ethics Advice Board, overseeing the development of the NHS app, and she joins us now. Lillian, the app is getting a bit of a rough ride in the last couple of days. Is that unfair?
It's both fair and unfair. And that situation goes back before the current very steep rise in infections. So on the one hand, as Christoph Fraser was saying in various places today, in some ways it's been a big success, at least in the England and Wales app, because we're still seeing a high number of requests for tests coming through at the app. I think he says something like 50% of the requests, so it clearly is being used. But the question is, why is it being used? And again, anecdotal evidence would seem to be that it's partly because of the inspired idea, actually, of including the QR code venue checking app within it. which lets people get into many bars and restaurants and clubs or whatever, or clubs are not open, right? So that's very often why people use it. And on the other hand, there is quite a lot of anecdotal evidence again that people are, if not deleting it, then particularly in workplace, because they just skyrocket. It seems, inevitable now that the government is removing. We'll send, notifications to people so many times, so often, that they will ignore it, or test and trace will be unable to do anything with it. And I think there is a really serious danger here of test and trace being so overwhelmed that it is covertly scaled down, really, almost where we were in March 2020.
And on August the 16th, people who are pinged don't have to self-isolate if they've had jabs. Would that be a game changer for them?
Yeah, I think it would be. Whether, again, people will actually delete it because it's about to be dismantled, at least as mandatory. I'm not sure that's going to be a personal choice. Contact tracing and is very little used because it isn't mandatory. And I think what we'll see is a continuation perhaps of checking, but maybe it will be run through proprietary apps, which obviously bars and restaurants can use to include their payment mechanisms, to include adverts, to include their own Wi-Fi codes and so forth into it. So it becomes much more part of their normal branding and advertising. So yeah, I do think that we are going to see people starting to disregard the main national app. I could be wrong, but the drivers seem to be in that direction.
Lillian, thanks for joining us. That's Lillian Edwards, Professor of Law, Innovation and Society at Newcastle University. Well, I spoke a little earlier to Steve Reed, the Shadow Communities and Local Government Secretary and Labour MP for Croydon North. So interesting PMQs this lunchtime. Keir Starmer really highlighting the fact that the Prime lifting virtually all restrictions, and he regards that as reckless. Why is it reckless?
Well, we've had the new health secretary telling us that daily cases of COVID infections are likely to go up to 100,000 a day, which means you could have 2 to 3 million people with COVID at any one time. And the risk we're running then, with that many people getting infected, even if the vaccine is 90% effective, even if 90% of people have been vaccinated, the risk we then run is that still enough people getting sick to overwhelm the National Health Service later on in the summer, leading to further lockdown restrictions, and nobody wants to go back to that. So the thing that we're calling for is, instead of this chaotic abandonment of everything without the evidence to support that it's going to be safe, it's far better to do it in a controlled and measured way, err on the side of caution, and retain at least some requirements for people to keep wearing masks, for instance, in closed spaces, on public transport, ensure that offices are properly ventilated if workers are coming back into them, and ensure that we've got track and trace working so that we can keep track of this virus, which we already know is growing at an exponential rate right now.
This figure of 100,000 cases, which sounds horrific when you say it like that, is it not to be expected though, in a way, because we have more than 1 million people doing their own lateral flow test each day now. It's very easy to get. I know I got some the other day myself. 6 or 8 months ago.
Pakistan and Bangladesh. Just as widely on the green list, because the Prime Minister was hoping to travel to New Delhi to meet the Indian Prime Minister.
Sure, but this is all history. I mean, we really need to look at what's going to happen in the future. You said that you think that not everything should be opened up, that masks should be continued to be worn on public transport. It's within the remit of Sadiq Khan, say, in London, to order that to happen. So do you think he's going to do that?
Well, I mean, the reason that the recklessness is linked is because having done it once, we don't want the government to do it again. What we're asking them to do, presumably, the government has modelled the risks to the population and to people's health of unlocking everything all at the same time. The government hasn't modelled the risks, in which case or they haven't modelled the risks, and they're telling us what's going on. What risks are we facing? And if the government isn't sure, please err on the side of caution. We don't want another lockdown later this summer.
Do you really think, though, that Chris Whitty and Sir Patrick Vallance would have stood alongside the Prime Minister who was making those announcements if they didn't buy into it? Because they didn't have to be there, presumably. Well, if you refuse to and it led eventually to a long lockdown that started in November, extended through Christmas and right through the
but
New
we didn't
Year.
have the vaccine then, did we? The vaccine surely is the thing that's made the difference now, that enables them to open up. And if you say they shouldn't be opening up on July the 19th and then more on sort of August the 16th, surely you've got to kind of give an indication as to the circumstances when you think things should open up and when that might be.
Yeah. Well, the point is,
Steve Reid, the Shadow Communities and Local Government Secretary, Labour MP for Croydon North. Don't forget at 8 o'clock, it's Cross Question, a special Cross Question tonight. We're only going to take calls on international affairs, world affairs. So the lines are open already, 0345 6060 973. It's 19 minutes past 7.
This is LBC.
Nothing. We're told not a good choice. Can't choose what present to get? How about nothing? Or what to call your newborn child? Nothing doesn't go down well. Until now. Because Hyundai is giving you nothing. 0% APR available on selected Tucson models and on the Kona Hybrid and Mild Hybrid. Choosing nothing could be the best decision you make. Search Hyundai. Available until 30th of September. 0% over 24 months. Minimum 30% deposit. Easy to apply. Hyundai Motor UK is accredited program.
Booking a hotel can be a bit of a hassle. The fake reviews, the endless options, not to mention the fear of getting a bad deal. But with Premier Inn, you can catch all those worries aside. Like great value family rooms in over 800 locations, plenty of market, and delicious food to please everyone, even the fussy ones. So you can family trip without any of that. Premier Inn. Rest easy. Only available to book at premierin.com.
When you own a small business, whether you're an IT consultant or selling flowers, your tech is your lifeline. Oh no!
Sorry, we lost you there.
Yeah, Boris, I'll be going there
But
as
with
well,
Direct
don't
Line
worry.
Business Tech Essentials, you can get your stolen or damaged tech replaced in 24 hours from claim approval. Whether it's laptops, phones or tablets, we're on it. Search Direct Line Business Insurance. Direct Line.
Cover and claim limits
Hey,
apply
Tim.
Monday to Friday at 8 AM to 6 PM, except bank holidays. Underwritten by UK Insurance Limited.
With Barclays support, we've multiplied meals and smiles and went the extra mile.
We provide more financial support and more helpline talk.
We fought loneliness and helped more people that are homeless.
Charities have the power to do more with help from Barclays. Applications for 50 new charities to receive £100,000 each open on the 12th of July. Search Barclays £100 million COVID-19 Community Aid Package. Eligibility criteria apply. Closing date 6th of August
2021. We'll always be there when you need us. Switch to the UK's #1 breakdown service and skip and a month. We'll get you back on the road. Join us today at theairway.com. You click on the link, you can see the number 1013 at theairway.com/number 1. Access voices. This very lovely statement from our bathroom tax gallery. Like a compelling closed-circle toilet. 130 pounds. Now only £99. Well, if you
22 on NBC, Amber List travel restrictions are expected to be dropped from the 19th of July for fully vaccinated people. It comes as two of the biggest airlines, British Airways and Virgin Atlantic, are to trial fast-track lanes at Heathrow for fully vaccinated. Tony Calder, travel editor for The Independent, is here to update us on all things travel. Simon, very good evening. These fast-track lanes, how are they going to work apart from being fast-tracked?
Well, they're not going to be particularly impressive if you thought it was going to get you any kind of respite from the incredibly onerous rules there are coming in from Greece, from Jamaica, from the United States. All of those places, like the vast majority of countries worldwide, are on the amber list. That means 10 days of self-isolation. In England, you can halve that with a second test on day 5, but you're also going to have to pay probably a couple of £100 for PCR tests on day 2 and day 8 after you arrive. Now, where we are, actually, Ian, is the UK finally 5 months on is to be catching up with the rest of the world in acknowledging that if you've been lucky enough to have been jabbed twice, then you probably present a much reduced risk to public health. So therefore you should be given an easier time at the borders. This has all happened really quite quickly. Clearly it was 12 days ago since we, 11 days since we got a new health secretary, 12 days before it was clear that the other one might not make it. And the transformation of travel is happening quite quickly, but I think it's a little bit early to say that travel is coming home, because 19th of July is not a big time. Yeah, I hope it's right, and I'll be the first one out the door out down
I'm
here.
sure you will. Do you sense that, my instinct now is that the travel sector has somewhat of a plan to return to some semblance of normality, something that I wouldn't have said even 2 weeks ago. They still seem to be feeling like it's relatively speaking. I mean, travel being the industry of human happiness is kind of naturally optimistic, but I've never seen such misery in it. And all they're desperately hoping for is that they get something to help them rest through the summer. But now, bear in mind that in Scotland it's already summer. Schools broke up 10 days ago. They broke up last week in Northern Ireland. If this comes into effect, it will just about be in time for the school holidays in England and Wales. Expect that an awful lot of families have been the people spending thousands of pounds booking a lovely cottage by the coast in Cornwall because everything is so uncertain. And sorry, I didn't properly, Ian, forgive me, answer your question about these fast-track lanes at Heathrow. Well, here's what's going to happen. You turn up at Athens or Montego Bay or New York or Los Angeles, and you say, hi, I'm going to London Heathrow with British Airways or Virgin Atlantic. Here's
that's Cumberland, that's Ebonite, Cumberland Ebonite,
Thanks so much for that.
or Brindle, whatever you want to call it.
Details of this through to London. And it goes through
Red,
to
black.
London, and you join a
Classic,
different
traditional.
queue for exactly the same border check. So they might as well say, okay, anybody whose star sign is Capricorn, we will let you go into a fast track queue. It's as meaningless as that. But what they're hoping to do is to demonstrate, because one reason I'm so sceptical about the 19th of July is there's so much to be sorted out. Do you have checks at the border before you fly into the UK? And if so, what's that lovely lady or gentleman or checking in a lovely Greek island going to make of all that? Do you have everybody being checked at the border as they are now, but just in much higher numbers, so you've got all kinds of queues? Or do you have a kind of random thing? I don't know that anybody's guessing that. And what do you tell the children? You're going to be quarantined.
I think we will talk again on the 19th of July. When you want us on your travel somewhere that we know not where yet. Simon, thank you very much. That's Simon Calder, travel editor of The Independent. Now, lorry drivers could be expected to work longer hours in order to compensate for the severe shortage. Transport Secretary Grant Shapps tweeted that the government will be temporarily relaxing rules for drivers and ramping up driving tests. plans have received a huge backlash from industry leaders who believe it will leave workers exhausted. Well, one of these affected by the extension is Rob Holliman, who's director at Young's Transportation and Logistics. Rob, very good evening to you. Are you one of these who is not impressed by this?
Absolutely, I'm not impressed by this. I think it's outrageous. It's dangerous as well as being outrageous.
Just explain how the rules are being relaxed.
Well, the current regulations are that you can drive without getting too complicated 9 hours a day. They're extending that to 10 and a couple of times a week, 11 hours, I believe, as well, which is just too long. Lorry drivers are already working their socks off, and the fact that we're now expecting them to do even more is unfair, it's immoral, and as I say, it's dangerous. They're already tired. So we can't have a system in this country whereby there's laws in place to keep everyone safe and sound. That's all road users, that's the drivers themselves, until it suits otherwise. We can't have that. It's a nonsense, and it's a very dangerous precedent to set.
How many drivers are you short of at the moment?
We're probably in Purfleet, Young's in Purfleet is probably around 10 short. In Southampton, we're around 20 short. And in Warrington, Northwest Cargo, one of our subsidiary companies, we're probably around 30 short. So it's a considerable number.
So if you advertise a job, are you just not getting the applications? There just aren't the people there?
That's exactly it. I mean, I heard a statistic today. I was doing some stuff where for 90 jobs that were advertised, there was one single applicant. And that's pretty much the picture nationwide.
So presumably, therefore, pay levels are starting to increase.
Pay levels are starting to increase, but all that does is move the current labour around the current market. What it doesn't do is increase.
So if I decided, Rob, that I'd had enough of presenting on the radio and decided that I wanted to drive a lorry, don't joke, how long would it take me to get the requisite licence, documentation, whatever?
Well, you could probably get your class 2 within a couple of weeks if you do the intensive training and then the test. However,
you clean it up.
Thereby hangs the tail. Whilst the training is available, so you can be taught to drive, what isn't available are the tests. And nobody in their right mind is going to invest quite a considerable sum of money in having lessons on an intense course to then find out that they can't take the driving test for another 6 months or whatever.
Okay, Rob, I understand the problems. I'm not sure what the solution is. Thank you very much indeed. That's Rob Holliman, Director of Young's Transportation and Logistics. Well, anybody that wants to train as a lorry driver, there's your chance, it seems. Andy Sylvester is acting editor of City AM and joins us now for a business roundup. Andy, very good evening. House prices have dipped, and it's presumably because the stamp duty holder has been there.
Yeah, that is exactly the case. In first time in a year that house prices have fallen, they fell by under 0.5%. To be honest, nothing too dramatic. Still means they're up 8.8% for the year. But yeah, this is what happens then, as the Chancellor knew when he announced the stamp duty holdout. When you interfere in the market, if you interfere in the market, things get weird. The question, of course, on housing in the UK, as it has been for a tremendously long time, is that we do have a shortage of houses being built, regardless of stamp duty. Prices will therefore keep going up. That's another question for the Chancellor in the post-pandemic world.
We talked about Wise, the fintech firm, the other day. They've been valued at almost £9 billion on their stock market debut. That presumably is quite impressive.
It is. It is a record for a sole UK, is solely within the UK, on their first day. It wasn't a normal IPO. It's what's called a direct listing, which is a little bit technical and, frankly, somewhat boring, even for me who loves this sort of stuff. It's an example of the fact that London does still have the ability to attract these big fintechs, these big tech firms, these big unicorns, as they're known. Wise, they're HQ'd in the UK. Some of your listeners may well remember them. They used to be called TransferWise. It's a good, really good boost for London, to be honest, in a sort of tech landscape, because Deliveroo, as we talked about before, an absolutely disastrous IPO. So this is a sign that you can still list in London without it going wrong.
Thank you very much, Andy. That's Andy Sylvester, editor of City AM. Coming up in a moment, we'll have the sports roundup. I wonder what we'll be talking about in that. It's 7:32 on LBC. Tim Humphrey has the news headlines.
Boris Johnson's insisting his self-isolation policy is prudent. The Prime Minister's been warned thousands may delete the Test and Trace app to avoid having to quarantine. Lorry drivers are going to be allowed to work for longer hours because of a shortage of workers. The government's announced the temporary extension, which starts on Monday, to allow them to make longer journeys. Boris Johnson's described the killing of Haiti's president as an abhorrent act after he was assassinated in his own home overnight. Jovenel Moise had been in charge since 2017, but opponents have been demanding he resign over a failure to hold new elections. The weather showers dying out by midnight to leave clear spells and the odd mispatch, a low of 9.
This is LBC.
This is the sound of business owners bossing their day with Sage.
Fish delivery, boss. Invoices, sorted.
Clients work out, boss. Expenses smash.
Tax return done.
Take control of business with new financial tools from Sage. Boss it. Try for free at sage.com. Terms and conditions apply.
These guys have just discovered the better way to buy their next car, and they're all over it. They've gone online to Kazoo, picked out the car they love, and can collect it or have it delivered to their door. And they'll get a 7-day money-back guarantee to make
security too. And 24/7 online support, all for just £25 a month. Okay, you can play it now. TalkTalk, for everyone. Offer ends 7th of July. Search TalkTalk Fibre. CPI plus 3.7% increase from April 2022, subject to location. £4.95 postage and packing, T's and D's apply.
The barbecue bacon stand from McDonald's with creamy barbecue sauce, bacon, pepper jack cheese, and 2 100% Lots of love. Only available for a limited time. From 11 a.m. until the 27th of July, participating restaurants subject to availability.
Today I sang Happy Birthday for Mia. Talked her into that electric blue wig. Paid for Omar's 70-mile cab ride for a station. She's been diagnosed with terminal cancer. I'm Misha, from the Macmillan Support Line. Every day we do whatever it takes to help people living with cancer. Call us free on 0808 808 0000. Macmillan Cancer Support. Whatever it takes.
Start your day with eggs or avocado on toast. A Sunday lunch, a sandwich or a foot-on roast. If you're cooking just for one or you're a host with the most, there's an avocado just for you.
With more choice than
I'm a flexi pesky fruitarian.
There's an avocado just for you.
Geographical restrictions apply. Verification by info@avocadoretail.com.
Ian Dale on LBC.
With Purple Bricks, meet your local property expert today.
7:36 is Cross Question at 8 o'clock tonight. Tonight, a special World Affairs edition. I'm joined by Stephanie Bolton from Die Welt, Bortsu Daragahi, who's international correspondent at The Independent, Mitchell Reese, former US ambassador to Northern Ireland and advisor to George W. Bush, and Stephen Erlanger, who's chief Europe diplomatic correspondent for The New York Times. They're here to take your calls purely on international issues. So the lines are open now, 0345 6067. Goes across live to Wembley Stadium where we find Rob Harris. And you're watching some minor match tonight, I think, Rob.
Yeah, it's just a lesser occasion, obviously. People far more interested in a bit of political chat, I'm sure, after 8 o'clock. But it's hard to get away from the fact where Boris Johnson will be. He's just left Downing Street with Boris 10 on the back of his shirt and is here heading to Wembley for, of course, the Euro 2020 semi-final. England taking on Denmark. England, of course, trying to avoid a another semi-final defeat. Obviously losing 3 years ago at the World Cup against Croatia. Gareth Southgate experienced the pain as a player here at Wembley against Germany in 1996. But obviously England doing so well so far in this tournament, yet to succeed on the run to the semi-final. And Gareth Southgate has pretty much stuck with the same side that beat Ukraine 4-0 on Saturday. The only change is Bukayo Saka is fit again, so he's come in and replaced Jadon Sancho on the wing. So sticking with familiar theme, and he's hoping that really he sees Saka as being able to have a key influence back in the side again. But a big, big moment for England. Can they finally reach their first final since 1966?
One can but hope. Now, what's the latest from Wimbledon?
Playing his first ever Grand Slam. Federer was looking to win his which has had no such problems. He's gone through and he's beaten the unseeded Martin Fucsovics in straight sets.
And some COVID disruption at the Lions tour in South Africa.
Yeah, there are many questions coming on this tour actually go ahead, and it's been disrupted on the South African side by coronavirus cases, and now a member of the British and Irish Lions management team has and that's also two players, other members of contact, also in Johannesburg. It's a real disaster. They're still just trying to play warm-up matches before the tour itself even gets underway. So, yeah, ongoing challenges there down in South Africa.
Rob, enjoy the match tonight. Thank you very much. He says through Critter T. That's all I severely injured in the attack. The interim Prime Minister Claude Joseph vowed the killers will be brought to justice. Well, James Rothwell joins me now to explain more. He's foreign correspondent for The Telegraph. James, obviously terrible when this sort of thing happens. What was the cause of the with the
First of all, he's been accused of mismanaging the response to two serious natural disasters. Your listeners, and also 10 a few years ago for cutting fuel subsidies. As you said earlier, though, it's really not clear at the moment who carried out this attack. There are some reports saying that the attackers claimed to be US drug enforcement agents when it happened, but that is also strongly disputed. And at the moment, there is a real atmosphere of confusion over in Haiti because the authorities, as you alluded to, are urgently trying to figure out who exactly was behind this.
Yeah, we only really ever hear about Haiti when bad things happen there. Obviously, it's been a country that's gone through some pretty big turmoil over the last few years. I mean, how shocking will this event be for the people of Haiti?
I think it poses a major challenge to them because this is not a situation where you had a relatively stable country that was then rocked by an assassination. You have a country that was already struggling with severe political upheaval, major economic difficulties, and now on top of that the assassination of the leader, albeit one who was quite unpopular with many people in the country. So we'll have to wait and see. The interim Prime Minister says for the time being that order has been restored and the streets in Haiti borders have also been sealed who carried this out, but we will have to wait and see how severe this impact on the country as a whole.
James, thank you. That's James Rothwell, foreign correspondent for The Telegraph. Let's move to the other side of the world now. The Indian Health Minister was Wednesday, but Bharat report has been criticised after the country faced a sharp rise in cases and deaths earlier this year. Well, in the last hour, Mansukh Mandavia has been announced as his replacement. Well, Dr. Savir Sinha is an expert on Indian politics at SOAS University of London, and he joins me now. I think this wasn't the only resignation that was there.
Right, gentlemen, whoever's still watching patiently, I'm off inside. I'm going to join the family to watch the England match. So I will probably see you after. Have a great evening. Catch you on the next one.